Hi everybody, I'm Perry Hampton, Curator of Estuarine Biology here at the Calvert Marine Museum.
And I'm Stephen Godfrey, Curator of Paleontology.
And welcome to Ask Me Anything.
Anything!
Okay, first question. Is it true that the Megalodon still exists? If so, how long has it lived?
I would absolutely love if Megalodon was still alive, but as near as we can tell from a close examination of the fossil record, they became extinct about 3.5 million years ago. They first show up gradually about 20 million years ago. And I mean, that's a really good run from 20 million years ago to about 3.5 million years ago. They were the top marine predators of all time.
Our next question is how many shark species can be found in the Chesapeake Bay?
From what I've been able to tell, there have been 9 different species of sharks that have been found in the Chesapeake Bay. And all of these generally are found down near the mouth of the bay in southern Maryland and are probably animals that lived out in the ocean and either accidentally or just out of curiosity made their way into the Chesapeake Bay. They're usually not found farther up because the water salinity or the salt content is just too low for them, and they generally don't like fresh water. Now there's one exception to that, and that's the bull shark, and that's a species that can adapt fairly well to lower salinity or fresher waters. They've been spotted in the bay as far up as Baltimore and in the Mississippi River as far up as St. Louis.
Our next question is from a past intern who wants to know, what was your most memorable fossil find?
I think one of the nicest fossils that I ever found was a complete fossil dolphin skull along Calvert Cliffs. And it was of a dolphin called Pomatodelphis. And what made this find especially gratifying was that this is a really rare kind of dolphin, and the skull was complete. So excavating it, we knew we had something really special, and that was one of my most memorable finds. However, I do want to say one more thing about that. The most amazing fossil that I think I've ever seen was actually brought into my office by an amateur collector. It was actually a coprolite, about the size of your fist. Now, coprolite is the technical term that we give to fossilized poop. And in this fossilized piece of poop, there were impression marks where a Miocene shark had bitten the poop while it was still soft, and then it sank to the bottom of the ocean and became fossilized. That is just so incredibly rare in the fossil record, and for me to see that, like, it's just like my mind was just like, I cannot believe what I am seeing when this fossilized poop came into my office.
Okay, our next question. My son wants to know why shark teeth are easily found at Breezy Point.
So there are lots of shark teeth in the sandy beach at Breezy Point because for thousands of years, the Chesapeake Bay has widened. As the waves have pounded against the base of the cliff, it has eroded those cliffs. And those soft sediments preserve in those cliffs thousands of shark teeth. And so as those sediments came tumbling down onto the beach and the waves washed those sediments, they moved the teeth along Calvert Cliffs to that sandy beach. And so that's why when you go there today and you dig in the beach and you look carefully, you can find lots of tiny little gray shark teeth.
How do sharks hear?
So that's actually a good question. A lot of people know all about how sharks have the ability to sense, the sense of smell, for example. You've heard about how they can detect blood in the water, very small amounts and all of that. Well, they can also hear pretty well, mostly in the lower frequencies, which not coincidentally, I guess, are these sort of the sounds that would be produced by some splashing in the water or maybe fishes moving around and things like that. So yes, they can hear quite well. Their ears are internal. You really can't see them. They don't stick out like ours do. They're on the inside of their heads, and with only a little tube connecting them to the outside. And also, just very much like our own ears, they also aid them in the sense of balance as well.
What is the first thing we should do if attacked by a shark?
So what I would say about that is that, first of all, you should understand that that's just such an extraordinarily unlikely occurrence that it's not something most of us really need to worry about. There are millions and millions of people that go in the water every year for all kinds of reasons, mostly recreational, sometimes for work. And incidents where sharks injure or kill a person are just so low, such a low percentage that it doesn't even register. That said, in the extremely unlikely event that you might be injured by a shark, the first thing to do, of course, would be to try to remain calm. I know that's easy to say and harder to do, but beyond that, most likely the injury is going to involve some bleeding, so you would want to get out of the water, you would want to control the bleeding, and you would want to get medical attention as quickly as possible.
What is the oldest shark tooth or fossil housed at the Calvert Marine Museum?
So there are two answers to that question. Our oldest, I would say, fairly large collection of shark teeth are between 55 and 60 million years old. And there's quite a diversity of sharks known from the what's called the Aquia Formation of the Paleocene epoch. So those sediments those strata occur along the Potomac River, and people do collect those locally. And so we have quite a handsome collection of those in our permanent collection here at the Calvert Marine Museum. We also have some fossils from Western Maryland, which are much, much, much older. They're hundreds of millions of years old, and they date from the Paleozoic era. And they would include forms like trilobites. Here's a model of a trilobite. So these animals are long extinct, but they would be animals that would look like this. Trilobites and brachiopods, another group of ancient animals.
Do sharks keep swimming when they're asleep?
So there are kind of two questions to address here. The first one has to do with the popular misconception that all sharks need to keep swimming all the time in order to survive. There are around 400 different species of sharks in the world, and all but about 24 of them can sit down on the bottom motionless without any problem whatsoever. They possess the gills or the muscles and structure to pump water over their gills when they're motionless. But some of the others, a very small number of them, mostly the larger oceanic varieties, do need to continue to swim all the time to force water over their gills so they can breathe. And they're what's known as obligate ram ventilators. This is sort of what your question is getting at. Do those particular sharks, how do they sleep? Well, the answer is we don't really know too much about that. Not a lot of research has been done. We suspect that their version of sleeping is probably something very different than what we think of as sleep. It's probably more of just simply a restful phase that they can go through while still in motion.
I have a huge tooth that was given to me. It takes up most of my palm. Is there a way to tell if it is real or if it's a replica?
Sure, it would be relatively easy to tell the difference between a genuine Megalodon tooth and a replica, one that was a cast or copy. But unfortunately, it's difficult to describe to you what those differences would be. The recommendation that I have is that you actually send me an email with a photograph of the fossil. And so my email address is Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Godfrey, G-O-D-F-R-E-Y, followed by the @ symbol, then calvertcountymd.gov. And I provide this service to people who send me pictures of fossils on a regular basis, and I'm happy to try to identify the Megalodon tooth for you and tell you if it's a genuine tooth or a copy.
And our last question is for both of you. If you could be a shark, what kind would you want to be and why?
Go first.
Oh, sure, I'll be happy to go first. If I could be any shark, I think I would choose to be a whale shark, just because they're gentle giants and they're found in warm waters globally. I just think they're beautiful sharks in terms of their appearance and the spotted pattern on their bodies. And I like the way that people can swim around them, and they just look like such beautiful animals. I think I would choose to be a whale shark.
That's a great choice. I think my favorite, one species I've always admired, are oceanic white-tip sharks. They typically live far out in the middle of the ocean, hence the name. They rarely come close to shore, so people will almost never see them. They're fairly large species, and they have these enormous, great big pectoral fins, much larger than most other sharks, that have rounded tips on them, and they're almost like airplane wings, and they kind of use them in much the same way as they swim through the depths of the ocean. Just a beautiful shark. Well, those were really great questions, and we thank you so much for sending them in to us, and we thank you for your support of the museum.
And it's very unfortunate that we can't be together this year for an actual Sharkfest, and so we look forward to being together perhaps next year, where we can showcase the diversity of both fossil and modern sharks.